Well, I think that I recognized very early on, and not just recognized, but made the active decision that I was going to make this something really positive. Because I sort of came to the conclusion that this was going to be one of those sink or swim moments, and that I would look back on this point in time as a very pivotal moment that I could choose to make it work for me or not. Um, it's funny, when I came out with the story publicly, some of the posts that I put up even on Instagram and stuff, I wrote them probably a couple of days after I ended the relationship. But somehow I was able to step out of where I was in complete, utter heartbreak in that particular moment and recognize where I was going to end up. And I wrote them from that place.
Welcome to the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. I am your host, Scott Aaron, and each and every week I'm going to come to you with short, simple, and powerful tactics of how you can grow your network marketing business, brand, bank account, and impact on those around you. And just remember, network marketing is not easy, but it can be made easy with simple steps to create the success that you truly deserve. Welcome to episode 126 of the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. And if you are a new listener, then welcome. And if you are a returning listener, then welcome back. And as always, if you are a seasoned or new network marketer and you are still building your business through the means of Facebook and Instagram, and you are not yet harnessing the power, leverage, and possibilities that LinkedIn can provide you, please head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free 15-minute discovery call with me where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we could potentially work together. So super excited about today's episode for a number of reasons. Number one, this person is truly living their best life right now, and I'm totally jealous because they're living their best life in Bali as you guys are listening to this. And that's a place that I've always wanted to go, and I will be there when the time is right. But secondly, this is someone that's had to overcome obstacles in their life and had the option to do one of two things. Number one, sit in their shit and not do anything, or move forward from it to create an abundant and incredible life, not letting those things or circumstances stop them. But above all that, this is someone who took to the airwaves of podcasting and has really inspired and motivated thousands and thousands of people with her message, but is now teaching other individuals the power and the leverage that a podcast can have to not only share your story, but to help those that listen, motivate, and live their best life. So Emily Gough, welcome to today's episode.
God, my gosh, thank you for having me. That was quite the introduction. I'm honored.
Well, it's all true. So let's dive right in. You're
Sure.
in Bali right now, but you're from Canada. And so
Yes.
there's people that are, I mean, everybody is always intrigued. Are you in Bali on vacation? Have you temporarily or permanently moved there? And what shifted the temporary or potential permanent move to a location like Bali?
It's a loaded question in my case. So, okay, I'll kind of work my way backwards a little bit. Originally, I planned on coming here for about 6 weeks, and I fell in love with it so much that I just kind of stayed. I've been in and out of the country a little bit to go to a handful of places like Australia, Hawaii, things that were kind of on my radar to go to around those times anyway. But I had planned a much more robust trip that involved a lot of other locations, but I could just feel my energy being pulled here, and I wasn't ready to leave. So I am going back to Canada at the time of this recording for maybe like a month and stuff over the holidays. But after that, I'm going to be treating Bali kind of as my home base. And this is not where I expected to be even like 8 or 10 months ago. So Let me see. Last Christmas Eve, on Christmas Eve of 2018, I got a knock on the door, and it was my partner at the time. It was my partner's previous girlfriend, and she came banging down our door at 8 o'clock on Christmas Eve to inform me that he had been having an affair with her on and off for our entire 9 years together. Um, it came as a shock, to put it mildly. And this was also, this wasn't a situation where there are all different kinds of infidelity. Infidelity happens for all kinds of different reasons. This was not a situation where it was like everybody else knew about it and I was the only one who was sort of unaware. Everyone was completely blown away by this. This was not something that anyone saw coming or expected in any way. So I made the decision to end the relationship, which is not the right decision for everyone. I want to make that clear, that there is no shame in staying. Esther Perel talks about this a lot, about how things have the tides have shifted. There used to be a huge amount of shame in leaving, and now there's a lot of shame in staying. So I always want to add that, this was the right choice for me to end the relationship, but that is not the case for everyone. I was also really fortunate that we didn't have children. There were all kinds of other factors that gave me more freedom to walk away than some people have. So I was hugely privileged in that regard. But I made the decision to end the relationship, and then he and I worked together for about 6 months on and off to get our house ready for sale. Sold the house, and I picked up and moved to Bali. But in that time, there were also a lot of other details that came to light about his activities while we were together, and things that he had been getting up to, including he had been going to a house 170 meters from our driveway with this other woman and kept it a secret for years. A family member of his owned it, and it was like this big secret. And we'd had entire conversations about this house that we walked by every day, and, about some of the renovations that were being done when we noticed it had been sold. And it turned out that he had been the one doing the renovations. So it just kind of went on, and I just kept getting hit with more and more waves of things that I never thought that I would have to deal with or experience. And kind of working through all of it, I got to the point where I find that not a lot shocks me at this point. And I mean that in a really positive way. I think because I've just really learned that there's a huge amount of self-trust that comes with moving through something that significant and coming out on the other side and actually thriving because of it. And I recognized very early on that I was going to make it the best thing to ever happen to me, because otherwise I had wasted the previous 9 years of my life. So I needed to take that and use it for me rather than let it sink me.
There's a saying that, instead of surviving, start thriving. And
Yes.
you don't want to just go through life surviving life. You want to thrive. And well, first, I just want to honor and say thank you for being just so open and transparent. And I know that there's going to be some listeners that are also going to feel the same way, because, you heard my story when I did a little training for your mastermind, and I'm very open about my past and, those brain tattoo moments that I talk about. And obviously this is one of your brain tattoo moments. And the audience can't see this, but as we're doing this interview, I'm looking at someone that is smiling and is laughing and is happy, and there's people that are listening to this and they're like, holy shit, how could this person 9 years, and they're just 10 months ago and now they're in Bali, and they're okay. And of course you're okay, because forgiveness and all of those things, when you move forward, it's not about forgetting about what happened. It's forgiving the person, forgiving yourself, and also giving yourself permission to move forward. Because if you don't, and you spend your time looking in the rear view mirror, how are you going to focus on what lies ahead? So let's go back to the aspect of surviving versus thriving. What was that decision that you made for yourself, that you end the relationship, you spent the next 6 months getting the house ready, selling it, and then you're like, okay, it's Emily's time. It's my time now. So talk about the decision you made to thrive and not just survive, and what has that really done for you in your life?
Well, I think that I recognized very early on, and not just recognized, but made the active decision that I was going to make this something really positive. Because I sort of came to the conclusion that this was going to be one of those sink or swim moments, and that I would look back on this point in time as a very pivotal moment that I could choose to make it work for me or not. Um, it's funny, when I came out with the story publicly, some of the posts that I put up even on Instagram and stuff, I wrote them probably a couple of days after I ended the relationship. But somehow I was able to step out of where I was in complete, utter heartbreak in that particular moment and recognize where I was going to end up. And I wrote them from that place. And I barely even had to edit them months and months later when I came out with it publicly, because I was able to see that far ahead. And when you're in it, you are in survival mode, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that whatsoever. We all have to be in survival mode at one point or another. But I think that it's also really important to put something ahead of you that you can look forward to. And it doesn't need to be something as drastic as moving to Bali. That's just not possible for everyone. But you can make it something as simple as, setting up a date with your friends, next week, something to look forward to, a dinner out, something like that. You can create these little small moments in your life to look forward to, and those can start to lead into bigger and bigger things that will help you to survive that really pivotal, dark moment in time, so that you can get to the other side of it. And I did just really recognize that I wasn't going to have nearly as many options and as much freedom as I had in that exact moment. And that there are a huge number of things that I want in life and had wanted in life for a long time that were never going to be possible as long as I remained in that relationship. And I think that I had known that on a really deep level for a very long time. And I had denied to myself. I was really pushing aside my own intuition and my gut instinct, and it worked against me. So when all of this came to light, it was a bit of a punch in the face of not only needing to forgive him, but to really forgive myself on a deep level for ignoring so much of what had been going on. I felt my anxiety lift within a couple of days of ending the relationship, and it had been nearing crippling levels. And I just hadn't been paying attention to what had been going on. And I hadn't realized that he and the relationship in general was ultimately the source of a huge amount of that tension that was going on in me and manifesting both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So when that ended and that started to lift, it was a little bit like the fog clearing, and I was able to start to see a little bit more clearly what I could do with my life and what I could make of my life, and change things the way that I had always wanted them to be, but had thought that it would never actually be possible.
Vulnerability and transparency are also, when they come from a very genuine and authentic place, are so impactful. So share with the audience exactly what happened social media wise, not only with what you put on Instagram, but I know you shared your story publicly on your podcast. What was the reaction when you did go public with this story, and how did it impact not only your business, but how did it impact your audience and your following?
Not only did I'm all about connection. That tends to be one of the other things that I'm really known for. And this has really taken that to a next level. Because I think that vulnerability can be treated a little bit as a commodity these days. And I had a lot of concerns. I knew right away that I was going to go public with my story, from a genuine place, not because I was trying to throw anyone under the bus or anything like that, but because I felt obligated from the sense of my own healing, that I felt I needed to speak that into existence, especially because I had been lied to for so many years. It just felt like those lies were choking me, and I needed to get out my own truth. And it not only did it massively deepen the connection with my listeners and other people in the online space, I still, months later, have people showing up weekly in my DMs, pouring their hearts out to me and sharing some really deeply personal stories that they feel comfortable sharing with me because of that connection that I created with them simply by opening my heart to them. And I think that it's really possible to be vulnerable without crossing that line. And how we usually determine if vulnerability is being used as a commodity is that people can smell bullshit, and you can sense when people are sharing something from a place of wanting something back from it. Whereas when we share just for the sake of sharing and for impact and for just wanting to touch that one single person that it will make a difference to, you can feel that on an energetic level. And that shit translates. And that's when people can really recognize in you that that's someone I want to be around. I want to be around that energy. I want to be around that lightness. It can be a really dark, heavy story, but if you come forward with it in a way that is going to really touch people on that level, and that wasn't why I came forward with it. I didn't come forward with the podcast. I wasn't creating the podcast going, trying to figure out how this would impact people. It was much more, I hope that someone going through a similar situation will be able to be helped by this. It will give them a little ounce of hope. And I just really need to share my story on a really deep, genuine level. And that was it. And then it turned into having such a massive impact. Tim Ferriss has talked about this, that when he wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, he's like, if I'd written it for the masses, it never would have likely made it to the New York Times bestseller list. He had 2 specific friends in mind that he was thinking about when he wrote that book. And that's why it resonated on such a deep level with people. You can't come forward with things like that and think, oh, this is going to be the thing that makes me, this is going to be that viral thing that just makes me explode, because then it won't be coming from that really genuine place. And that's what makes all the difference.
It's one of those things where when you do things from almost like a soulful cleanse, cleansing of the soul, exfoliating your soul, it really impacts people in a way that you never imagined. And I think it's that whole principle of doing things without expecting anything back in return. But in this instance, and in this case, the universe always brings back to you, whether it's intentional or unintentional, what you put out there. So, there's a lot of people that are listening to this, Emily, that may have not gone through something that you went through, but maybe something similar or parallel or even linear to what you've gone through. And, I know that you're, not fully attached to the network marketing world, but you're very familiar with it. You have friends that do it. You know what the industry is all about. And entrepreneurship, whether you're a business coach, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're a network marketer, it all looks the same, but just in a different way with your business. So speak to those people that are going through their stuff right now. They're not being supported the right way with their friends and family with what they're doing. Because again, I don't care what the vehicle is. I don't care if it's a network marketing vehicle or a podcast vehicle or a business coach vehicle. The people around you that see you changing and see you shifting, there's going to be resistance there. They're going to be like, what the hell are you doing? What do you mean you're starting a podcast? What do you mean you're selling products? What do you mean you're coaching people? And, they're called sheeple. They try to keep you in the herd. And then when you start to break away, they try to pull you back in. So speak to those individuals that might be going through some sort of resistance of change, not with themselves, but with their external environment that is keeping them there where they want to break free, and what that individual can do to move forward. And it's not about not stepping on toes or offending or hurting anyone, but what is something that someone can do gracefully to move forward to really start living their best life?
That's a tricky question, because it's going to look a little bit different depending on the relationship that that person has with the people offering the resistance as well. But I think that it's really important to recognize that at the end of the day, who are you living for? And do you really want to build your entire life around someone else's expectations? Because not only will you never fulfill those expectations, those expectations will constantly be, being placed farther and farther above you, or in a different way that you're always trying to fit the mold to, but you will never fulfill your own expectations. And that is what is going to create that deep unhappiness within you. And I have spent most of my life being a people pleaser, and I recognize fully how easy it is to fall into that trap. And this has been a really huge learning experience, because even if I just take the example of moving away from home, there are people back at home who were, and a handful of them continue to be, very resistant to me living on the other side of the world. And I understand that, but it's not something that I can fulfill for them, because I can sense that at this moment in time, this is where I need to be. And I can't live that for someone else. So you have to really look within and get super clear on what you want. If no one else was judging you, if no one else was giving you a hard time, strip back all the bullshit and figure out what it is that you would want out of life, what you do want out of life. And that is going to help you to start to get a little bit more clear on the decisions that you have to start making to make that happen. And that's when things start to fall into place in a much more beautiful way.
I love that. So podcasting, which is obviously your platform, and you're a high level business coach, but your podcast helped you in so many ways. And I was listening, I had the opportunity a few months back to spend an afternoon with Lewis Howes and Chris Harder, whose mastermind in 2019, moving forward, I was a part of. And, Lewis has the #1 business podcast in the world. He has over 100 million listeners a week. It's crazy. And he was talking about the importance of podcasting, but also the waves. There was a big wave of podcasting in 2010, and then there was a second wave in 2015. And he goes, we're going through a third wave right now. And people are they're in ingestion mode, so to speak, with taking in content, whether it's watching YouTube videos or listening to a podcast or an audio book or reading a book. But there's a lot of network marketers that really feel they don't have a place or a space or a message deep and meaningful enough to actually have their own podcast, where I feel that's just a story that they're telling themselves, because I never intended on having a podcast, but I said to myself, I can only impact so many people with what I'm doing right now. And if I can get my voice and my message out to the masses, leaving people better, it could actually help my business by helping others first. So speak to that for a second, for that network marketer that thinks that they shouldn't have a podcast, they have no right to have a podcast, they haven't earned the right to have a podcast. How impactful has it been for you personally to have your own podcast? But how impactful could it be for a network marketer who is looking to build their own business and personal brand to have a podcast riding alongside of what they're doing every day?
There's so many things that I want to address here. One of them is that I always want to really draw attention to the fact that podcasting is a really intimate experience, because we're speaking straight into someone's ear. And previously that has always been reserved for close friends and loved ones. Yet suddenly we have access to celebrities and high-level coaches and all these different people that we never had access to before at all. And they are speaking straight into our earbuds. And that's a really powerful experience. And sometimes I think that we forget just how significant that is. And podcasts can go with you anywhere, unlike video. You can't be driving and watching a video at the same time, but podcasts you can. So while people are doing their everyday tasks, and I'm sure that everyone listening has probably had this experience, I definitely have, where I'll remember a particular thing that I heard or learned on a particular podcast. And I remember the exact place I was standing or the exact thing that I was doing when I heard it. And that kind of connection, I've never noticed that before with video, but it seems to be much more powerful when it's audio and we're packing it up and taking it with us on daily, everyday tasks. Podcasting has it's also given me a massive amount of confidence. I never had huge fears around public speaking or anything like that, but I kind of like yourself, I'm looking to book more and more speaking engagements. And I have a level of confidence speaking just in general, much less on a stage, that I did not have before I started podcasting. And it's about consistency too, because when you're showing up for people consistently, not only are you showing up for yourself as well, and then you're gaining that confidence in your speaking abilities and finding your voice. And I mean that like metaphorically as well, like really getting to the root of your message and your messaging and your purpose and all of those different types of things. That comes from the consistency of doing a podcast or content somehow, but especially podcasting over and over and over again, and figuring out what resonates, figuring out what you are super passionate about doing and talking about, and what people are really connecting with on a deeper level. And something else that comes up as well is, because my story, and Scott, I know your story as well, is fairly dramatic. We have, you know what, on the scale of like dramatic to undramatic, we have relatively dramatic stories. And a lot of people will say, you know, like, I have nothing like that. I don't have a story like that. Well, I was podcasting long before I had this story, and I was still doing just fine. And having some super dramatic story isn't what makes you stand out in the crowd. It's about the connection. It's about how you tell it. It's about the way that you impact other people by just showing up. Like, if you just show up at the table, that's going to take you farther in life than all the other people who are waiting for the table to come to them. You have to just show up day after day, even when it does feel hard, and be consistent and show people that you are willing to put in the value and give the value. That is what is going to get them to trust you. And that is what is going to get them to trust you as a brand too, because you are your own brand. We're all walking brands for ourselves. And if people don't trust you, if that trust isn't there, they're not going to put their credit card down on the line when it comes time to pay for something. That offering, that service that you offer, that coaching package, whatever it is, they're not going to be willing to pay for it because they don't trust you. So for something as simple as, you know, if you start a podcast, even if you have a YouTube channel or whatever, if you say you're going to show up on a certain day and you aren't showing up when you say you're going to, where's the trust? They can't trust you to show up when it comes time to pay for something. So why on earth would they pay you for anything? So when you're making a commitment like that, you're not only making a commitment to somebody else, you're making a commitment to yourself to show up for you as your own brand. You're your own walking billboard, and you have to take that very, very seriously. And something like a podcast is building such massive levels of intimate trust that you can use that to your advantage, or you can let it fall by the wayside and not show up for people, and you're going to get a very different result.
Well, there's a lot of people that are listening to this that they're like, Emily, there's no way I can start a podcast. I don't know what to say. Or maybe they do want to start a podcast, but they just don't know where to begin. So you and I both know now that, you know, I've had my podcast for over a year. You've had yours for multiple years. There are some nuances and there are some things that you need to do, but you don't have to make it difficult for yourself. I did mine through Anchor, which is an app on my phone. So I that's my hosting platform, and I don't want to overwhelm or confuse the people that are listening to this. What are 2 or 3 things, very simplistic things, if somebody does want to start a podcast? What are just a simple 2 or 3 things that they can do to get started so they can at least push something out there? And then as they get more comfortable and as they start to get more knowledgeable, then they can refine and turn and twist and mold that into something even more as they move forward.
There are a few different things here. Something that I feel like people get hung up on, there's a couple of things. One of them is a microphone. For some reason, I've seen people get hung up on which microphone to buy for months. months. And I'm like, listen, I know that we live in an age of information overwhelm, but at some point you have to just make a damn decision and pick a microphone. And as you can see right now, Scott, I am recording on Apple earbuds. Yeah. And they work just fine. They work just fine. I have recorded probably over 150 episodes on nothing more than Apple earbuds. I have a microphone, but it's not always convenient to set it up or whatever. And sometimes the earbuds are just easier. And my sound is actually quite decent. Like no one's ever complained, and people are actually usually surprised. They're like, wow, your sound is great. Just use your earbuds. Then you don't even have to buy anything. You don't even have to go on Amazon to pick anything special. So that is one thing that I see people being held back on a significant amount. The other thing is things like cover artwork. Listen, you can change it later. You can absolutely change that later on. Pick a great photo, do a brain dump of some names that you really like, get that going. That's not going to take you years on end. Set yourself a time limit so that you have to choose something like a name and a photo by a certain date so that you're not messing around. And pick an actual launch date too, and hold yourself to that. Same thing as like the cover artwork. So in terms of like microphone, cover artwork, and picking a launch date, those are going to take you the farthest. And then it just comes down to just getting comfortable recording and not allowing yourself to re-record 20 or 30 or 40 times either. The first episode sucks. I've never heard a podcaster say on their 50th or 150th or 200th episode, guys, you have to go back to episode 1. It was my best one yet. No one has ever said that ever. So recognize that your first one is not going to be your best work. And it's fine, because you'll never get better if you don't do the first one anyway. So just start, and you will already be miles ahead of the hundreds of thousands of other people who say they're going to start a podcast and never do it.
I'm actually afraid to go back and listen to my first, even
So
though
am
it's my most downloaded episode because it's the first one. I am like, I don't even want to go back. I don't even want to go
It's
back.
cringeworthy. I'm like, no, please don't listen to that. Don't judge me on that one.
I'm just going to keep building on top of it, and it's there. But like, it's one of those things where I'm always so focused forward. I don't want to listen to. Eventually, I know I will, just to see how far we've all come. But I don't want to go back there right now.
No, none of us want to. And yeah, we're all going to hate our voices on audio too. Human beings are really weird. We hate the sound of our voices on audio because for some reason it always sounds so different than what we think it sounds like in our heads. Just get over that. Just get over that right away. And I do recommend to people, go back and listen to your episodes. Not, episode 50, listening to episode 1, because yeah, that's just way too cringeworthy. But as you're releasing them, listen to them at least once through, so that then you know what to improve upon as well. Like then you're not going to know how to improve if you never listen to your old episodes. So listen to it as much as it might suck while you're listening to it, and you will get used to it, and it will get better. You will get better as you continue to practice and to show up for people. And as long as you're offering value, that's what people are listening to. That's what people are looking for. And if you're coming with the value, the other little details are all going to fall away. It's not going to matter, because people just want the value. And you don't even have to stress about things like intro music or outro music or anything like that. Amy Porterfield, for quite a while there, she might even still be doing this. She actually took off her intro and outro music, and it was just her talking for the entire episode from start to finish. So trust me, if Amy Porterfield can do it, you can do it too, and not have intro and outro music.
Love it. So I have one final question, but before we get to that last question, first of all, this episode's been epic, and I know it's going to help so many people. I know you have a free giveaway for everyone. It's something new that you released. So talk about that and where people can go and find it. But more importantly, how can people find out more about what you do and how you could potentially help them, not only with podcasting, but also with business coaching?
For sure. Yeah. So it's, I have something called the Roadmap to Podcasting for Impact. And that's going to help you kind of learn like the three things, the three biggest secrets, I feel like, that no one is really talking about when it comes to podcasting. And that's going to really help you to start strong and remove some of the fears that so many of us have around podcasting and actually just showing up. I also have a course, Podcasting for Impact. And then business coaching, you can always book a call with me as well, 15, 20-minute call where we'll jump on the phone, see what your needs are and what is working for you, what isn't working for you, and how I can help you kind of move through all of that. So yeah, everything can be found over at emilygoughcoaching.com. And then obviously I'm over at the Room to Grow podcast as well. So if you're already listening on a podcast app, you can just type that in and jump over there.
Awesome. All that information is obviously going to be in the show notes. And I highly, highly suggest anyone that's listening to this that, wants to start a podcast or maybe improve the one that they have, the free download is going to be absolutely essential for you to really start moving forward. But I definitely set up a call with her. I know this can help you guys that are listening to this, because if you're looking to make a bigger impact, you have to have your voice and your message out there, and podcasting is such a great way to do that. So Emily, first of all, thank you for the amazing content and sharing your heart and your love for what you do with my audience. It's so impactful and it's so meaningful. But before we end today's episode, final question. There is no wrong answer, and that's what I love about this question. So Emily, what does success mean to you?
I've actually spent a great deal of time thinking about that question this year. Success to me means freedom, and in various different forms. So financial freedom, the freedom to travel, the freedom to, use my creativity to come up with some new business venture on the fly, to collaborate with people, freedom to just really connect with people on a deeper level as well. It comes in so many different forms, but to me, it just really comes back to the word freedom in all different ways.
I love it. Well, thank you again so much. And, Bali is 12 hours ahead of where I am. So I know that you had to stay up a little bit later for this, but I know how impactful this episode is going to be for so many people. So I just wanted to thank you again for your heart of service and being so open and transparent with my audience. It means so much, and just grateful for you. And thank you again so much for joining with me today.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm so appreciative, and this is so much fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please enjoy the rest of your days, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again so much for checking out this week's episode. And if you can, head over to iTunes, search for Network Marketing Made Simple, leave me a 5-star rating, basic review. I would be grateful for all of the support you guys can give me. And again, if you'd be interested in learning more how to utilize LinkedIn to grow your business, your brand, and your bank account, head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net. Fill out the form for your free 15-minute discovery call so I can learn more about you, your business, and how we can work together. And again, thank you guys so much. Grateful for you all, and I'll see you next time.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.